Okay, after nearly 18 years of growing Christmas trees, I want to say I've really enjoyed the process and will continue to enjoy the process. One of the mistakes I made early on is how I grew the trees, which made them so they weren't manageable. I don't mean the height of the trees. Sometimes you want to have really tall trees because some people want them, but I'm talking the trunks of the tree got way too large. And when the trunks of the tree get too large, it's heavy. Remember, you have to cut these trees down and you have to haul them out, or your customers do, and they're not going to be happy about it. So we did some things wrong that made the trunks too large, and what we've changed now, one of the things that we've done actually makes it so we can harvest trees maybe a year or two earlier. So it's a win-win if you keep a smaller trunk and get the tree there faster. Look at the size of this stump. This thing is a monster. Okay, almost a dinner plate here. I'd say that's 9 inches across right now. You know how much fun it was carrying this tree out of the field? Not fun at all. We didn't have just a couple big trees, big stumps. Look at these right in a row here. Here's an example of 2 trees that we're doing differently now than we did at the beginning when we had too thick a trunk tree. This is a tree that these 2 trees, we would have started shearing when we first started Christmas tree farming. When they were only about 2.5 feet tall, we would have been cutting to an 8-inch leader, no more than a foot, and then shearing it. And they would have been nice and tight and beautiful little Christmas trees, but then they're adding more rings, they're filling in more quickly, and so the rings are getting bigger and bigger. So what we've started doing lately, and I learned this from a guy years ago, he had a tree farm and they looked all straggly up to 5 feet tall, and you go, that's not going to be a Christmas tree. But then he slowed them down and let them start filling in. So this tree, years ago, it would only be this height at this age because I would have been cutting it back to that 8-inch leader. So this grew almost 2 feet this year. There's lots of buds it'll fill in. So I let it grow a lot. Now I would not want this big a leader on a tree I'm going to harvest, but it's over 5 feet tall. So this next year I'll only let it go 8 inches, and I'll let it get a little over 6 feet, and then maybe 8 more inches. And so it'll be 7.5 feet, and then we'll get it up to 8 feet. So I've got 3 more years here. In those 3 years, now that I'm going to slow it down, this will all still start filling in, and it'll be a full tree. But at the same point in time, we've still got a little tiny trunk right here, and this tree is going to get to 8 feet tall, and it's going to have a 4-inch, 5-inch diameter trunk, nothing like those monster trees that you were looking at. So this tree grew from here to here last year, probably 13, 14 inches, and then it put on 16, 17, 18 inches this year. Again, years past I would have been cutting the leader and trimming this back, but there's plenty of buds and side branches. This coming year, because it's getting up to 5 feet tall, I'm only going to let it have 8 inches, 8 more inches the next year. It'll fill out, and this will be a beautiful tree. And it will fill out completely. Got to make sure you got enough nitrogen for growth. You got to have boron in there to help with the bud development, and so it's got a lot of buds to fill in. But it's amazing. Let it grow up, and then slow it down the last couple years, and it'll fill out, and it won't be that monster trunk. You don't want those. Break your back trying to carry those things out. Another thing to do is start cutting your handles early and be aggressive. I used to hate cutting off even 10 inches for the handle off the tree. Now going to a foot is no problem, and the sooner you can do it, obviously when the tree's too young you don't want to do it, but once the tree gets up to 3 feet you might as well take off the first 10 inches of the branches. It won't be growing knots that are thicker. All the green foliage that you're going to have to cut off before you harvest anyway, you cut off early, because all that energy going into the tree creates a larger trunk. So once the tree gets to belt high on your waist, there should not be any branches on the bottom foot. They all need to go. And that will put the energy where it belongs in the other branches that you're going to keep. It won't have any other branches growing up in here, and that will mess up the shape of the tree, and it'll keep that trunk nice and small. And when the tree will still get full, but when you come and cut it down, it'll carry out a lot lighter. I mentioned once the tree is belt high that you should be cutting off a full foot for the handle. Obviously this tree is not belt high, it's only about 2 feet high, but we had a young man that needed to make some money this summer, so we had him come out and start cutting handles. On a really short tree like this, we can't afford to take a full foot off yet, but if we had him take off some of the lower branches and leave 2/3 of the tree, and then in another couple years we'll probably take off another whirl of these branches and another couple inches once there's more trees, so we're not taking too high of a percentage of the tree. But because we took this off, it'll be easier to do the handles later. We won't have any really big branches, and it's not creating a super large trunk right now. So this tree has actually had handles started this year, and then in the future we'll come up and take a couple more inches, and that's going to keep the tree nice and light. Please consider joining me again on the Flanagan Homestead, where Christmas trees are my business, teaching including horticulture is my job, and outdoor projects are my passion.